Hello, this is Jacob and Matt here with Small Business Chat, coming at you with another podcast for our new episode of Gen Z versus Gen Xer. Matt, how's it going today?
Let's get ready to rumble.
All right.
Man, let's do this. All right, thanks for setting this up. And by the way, thanks for our first swag.
You got it.
Appreciate you,
You
man.
got it. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for supporting us, Matt. Today we're going to talk about the differences. We're going to talk about navigating through technology, the differences between what you had growing up and what I had growing up. Compare and contrast maybe some workplace values. I'm assuming they're a little bit different than what they are now, of working 9 to 5 instead of working 9 to 5, working 9 to 11 at night.
Explain this concept of 9 to 5. I'm not familiar with this.
Well, 9 to 5 is just getting there right on time, no earlier, just starting your day at 9, and then working all the way to 5 o'clock, and then just stopping the timer right there. Yeah, exactly. With a lunch in between, which is usually an hour or two.
Well, I think lunch is usually at 5 o'clock, like the Gen Xers, and then we have to get back to work. And but we'll talk about all that sort of stuff. And also, is that our? What else we got?
Yeah, let's do it. We got some other things like exploring differences in learning styles, education, some financial habits, maybe how you saved money back in the day versus how you save money now, something like that. And then some dynamics between family relationships and structures.
Really?
Maybe how you move towards marriage, parenting, and other things.
I'm probably not an expert on marriage, but go ahead. You can ask away.
I'm married.
Embarrassing at all. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's start off with the first one, technology. All right. Let's start. Since I'm 26, what was technology for you when you were 26?
You're just trying to get like the old stone tablet and we chiseled everything.
Were there cameras back then?
Actually, we had filming. But I actually am in the generation. The Gen X is in the actual generation, first generation word processors, and first generation computers, like these things, all this crazy stuff that we're doing now. I mean, now you guys just, we all take it for granted. But literally, when I first started in the workplace, secretaries, and yes, that's what we used to call them back in the day, we're still typing things on a typewriter. And so we imagine making a mistake, like how many mistakes did you make on your notes or anything like that? You just back up.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have to white it out, pull it out, and all that sort of stuff. So
was copy and paste a thing yet by the time you were getting going? Copy and paste?
No, you couldn't do that with a typewriter. That would have been much harder. Now back when you had the actual stone tablets, you could slam a stone tablet.
There you go, chisel it out.
It would make an imprint. But that, and I can remember the first time I read cell phone. I mean, it was this big and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, now they weren't the computers that we have. I mean, first thing we had was we didn't have iPhones. You had Blackberries.
The good old Blackberries. That was actually before mine. Before I even got a cell phone. My first ever was just a little slide phone.
Yeah. And
the text messages, you had to go, instead of typing A or B, you had to go through A, B, C, D, get to E, whichever. Do you remember those?
Yes. It was
just the letters, you had to go through a couple of letters to be able to get to the actual letter that you wanted.
Right. Because it was a smaller keyboard.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now, and then they finally went to the QWERTY keyboards, the QWERTY keyboards and such. But again, I got to witness all this sort of stuff. And so, the first thing that you got to deal with is sort of the different layers, in the workplace these days. And so we're rolling this into. It's okay, so and again, remind everyone what generation you are.
I am Gen X. C. Yes.
You're actually looking at me. Oh wait, I thought. You're Z.
Z, yeah.
You're Z.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not Max. Mm-hmm. I'm X. So it went boomers and whatever the hell my parents were, because they weren't technically boomers. Mm-hmm. My parents were born in 43. Boomers were right after 43, and then it goes X, and then millennials. I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And then Z, and then what was that new one that we found out about? It was whoever the Z. It's the people that are born more recently. In 2000, whatever the hell it is, 2007 and beyond.
Y, I think it is. No.
Yeah, Y.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Y really won't get that. But anyways, the Z, I actually think the Z's have a lot of, a lot of crossover with actually millennials. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason. You remember you looked it up? What are they known for? And this is obviously generalizations, but what was your generation known for? Do you remember?
Were we talking about that today, or was that the other day?
We were in the office, we were chatting, and you mentioned a few things, it wasn't extraordinarily, good.
Complaining, yes. Also, we do take everything to offense. We're always play the victim card a lot, I'd say. I was never raised like that. My dad was a good boy, and he, had a lot of respect for his father. His father taught him a lot of things. Yeah. But I'd say, going back to the technology thing, like, what else did you use for like technology back in the day when you were 26?
And by the way, these are generalizations. So
Yeah.
Because for everyone, this is like, they're the shining stars and everything. And to say sort of just generally, well, millennials are known for this, or Gen Z or Gen X, it's no better than being a bigot and basically just being generalizations. But again, not to be hypocritical back on what I just said, there are some things you can take into account, because I have seen it being an employer for many, many years. There are differences and such. So from the technology perspective, it's fascinating, because I think it depends on who you actually hire. But for the most part, if you were to hire someone that is in their 60s or 70s or something, like, they're going to have a little bit more technological challenge.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be a little bit more technologically challenged, and you need to have IT support ready and available. And, the companies I've found, most of the time, like, the IT support is, here's your laptop, figure it out, and such,
Exactly.
And such. And what do you think from your generation? You guys think you guys are more tech savvy?
I would definitely say so. Like, for example, I was literally just talking to somebody today about their trademark, and she didn't know what Zoom was, and I could tell she was a little bit, on the older side. And so we just grew up with, I grew up in the golden age of video games. So video games kind of brought me into, being very tech savvy and figuring out computers, because, computer games. But
so what's to the older side for you?
Like how, what do you mean? Like
40s, 50s, 60s?
She sounded like she was in her 60s probably, but I would say anything past the 60s.
60s is like, wow, that's old.
Yeah.
50s, prime of life.
Exactly. And
then,
and I'm about to be 30 here in a couple of years. So
that's honestly, that's probably the best generation. I could be the best case. I think 30s is, I look back to my 30s, and like, I love my 50s, my 40s. Not too much. But my 50s have been great so far, but 30s, that was the bomb, man. That was the bomb.
Is that considered midlife?
30s or 50s?
30s. 35, 40? So what would be
midlife now?
50s, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Otherwise, actually, that's not true. I'm technically on the back. I'm on the back 9 of my life right now, so I'm just, and you don't know how many holes you get, so you just enjoy every single one.
Gotcha, okay. Awesome.
But you don't have that perspective until you're in your 50s, and then you're just like, okay, so back to technology for this. So I mean, honestly, that's one of the things that I actually, you do have to learn. Like, traditionally, and right now we're sort of getting to a point. So I'm in my 50s, and when I've worked with people who are a little bit older, some people embrace it, but on average, like the I don't even know if like an older Gen X is actually what it would be, because I'm sort of a mid Gen X, being 53, and the older Gen X's, you may have to have someone that sort of helps them out a little bit more with technology. I tend to consider myself, like yourself, sort of a tinkerer, and if I don't know how to do it, I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to figure it out. But you're going to give them, more IT support. In your generation, most people now can figure out. Zoom link ain't a problem. When we do training here at the company and such, it's just like you said, here, Zoom link, get on it, and all that sort of stuff, and they can usually figure stuff out. Like, they know the internet. You don't see people like freaking out about, getting on the Wi-Fi or anything like that.
Are you a DIYer?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, not just with computer stuff, maybe takes out technology, but like just in general, like home improvement.
Oh, absolutely.
Something's wrong with your door, you go out and fix it. You don't call somebody, mow your own lawn, or.
As I'm getting older, like, I go in phases, but as my time has been sucked up by more and more business type things and ventures, et cetera, I find myself that it is the only reason I still do the DIY thing, do it yourself, DIY thing, is for mental escapes. Now it's just, if you want it done right, hire someone who does the drywall right? But, when you're doing all the entrepreneur stuff that I do and all the various things that I have going on in my life, I will absolutely, sometimes just go out there and don't talk to anyone for an hour and a half, and mow the grass, or even if it doesn't need to be mowed or something, because it's a mental break. That I got from my father, who's a physician, and he would come home and he didn't need to, to do anything around the house, but the sense of accomplishment when you actually fix a door or whatever. And it's like,
you go back to that door and you're like, oh, I fixed that.
I did that.
And every time you open it, I think you already know this, but I have had a house that needed to be heavily restored. It was a fixer-upper when I first got the house, and I had to repaint. Thank you. I had to repaint the entire house from scratch because all of the entire house needed to be repainted.
Yes.
And I've had to fix the floors. I've had to fix mostly everything. But then going to your point is hiring the experts sometimes come in.
Right.
There's a door that will not close no matter what I try to do to it. I have no idea how to get that door to be closed. So I have hired. I'm having somebody to come over and do that. Some of my tile needs to be shaved off because of the house and it's settling.
Right.
So because of that, it doesn't close anymore with the tile in the kitchen. So
the door hits the tile in the kitchen. So take it off the hinges, put it up on whatever you put it up on the sawhorse or whatever, and shave the bottom of it with an actual planer. But anyway, so that may work because I'm sure you've already thought of that. But back to our technology thing. So generally speaking, the generations, I don't think it's going to be a big shocker. At least this is my experience. And we've had from both the trademark company, from law firms I've worked in over the years, from my 30-something years in the workplace, from various places and such. I think the younger generation, every generation is more tech savvy, on a whole, if you just want to generalize. And so, what you probably know, take it to your parents, they may be like, hey, that's voodoo. But it is easier and easier. But then the technology is always moving forward. I think that younger people tend to be a little bit better with technology. Even though every once in a while I'm still amazed. I'm like, okay, change your signature on Microsoft, Outlook or something like that. And they're like, wait, what are you talking about? And I'm just like, okay, go to settings and search signature. And they're like, oh, okay. And such. But generally speaking, I think it's a little bit easier to manage younger folks in reference to technology.
Because they're already set in their ways, or they already know.
They just know. They come in with almost like most people, in your generation, comes in with more of a tinkering type of attitude, and they're not intimidated by technology. Whereas people at my age and above can sometimes just get intimidated. So I think score one for the younger generations. I think it's actually better you guys win on the technology thing.
Awesome. 1 point for technology. You heard it over here. Awesome. So let's go to our next topic then. Compare and contrast workplace values and expectations of Gen Z and Gen X. Let's discuss how each generation views career progression as well, and work-life balance and job loyalty. You want to take that one?
Yeah, we promise not to get passive aggressive at each other on this one. 20 years apart.
Well, hit it at me, because sometimes I do actually stay. Most of the time, I stay to 6, 2, and here's also, if you're a business owner and looking to maybe instruct your employees, Matt does a really good job of kind of explaining why you should sometimes stay after, is because I do it, because everyone that does go home or to their to their whatever they want to do after work, but I stay afterwards because all the people that do that, I'm not collecting their customers, because when they call in, I'm getting all the leads. So Matt, if you want to tell them how you kind of you should do it in such a way that kind of just motivates you, rather than just saying, no, you're staying till 6 o'clock if you're going to be successful, instead of just letting people kind of realize that. So
and I think that the workplace has changed, and it's one of the things that people in my generation have grappled with over the last honestly 10 years, because the original thought was, well, millennials and then later Gen Zs are going to take over the workplace, so you better just go ahead and get accustomed to dealing with them. Someone like me, I believe that's not necessarily the case, because I still think, you've heard me talk about this, I think millennials and Gen Zs, again, in large part may get laughed because of people that work harder than them, that are younger than them, and they come in and do it. But then again, that's coming into it with my bias. My bias is basically, from our parents, I'm the son of the greatest, my grandfather's greatest generation, World War II type thing, and then those values got put into my father, but my father just, my grandfather's the hardest working man I've ever met in my life. He worked until he was 83 years old, and would go in and do a 9 to 6 job. Office management was the fun thing. He had 3 careers in which he got pensions and all that sort of stuff. That's the type of work ethic that we got. And you talk about the work-life balance. through the generations, the greatest generation came home. They didn't want to talk about all the crap that they had seen over the last couple of years, and they were thrilled to just work for one employer for 40 years, and at their retirement ceremony, they got a pen with their name on it, and they were freaking happy. My generation, fast forward a little bit, is known more for a little bit more job hopping, but 3 to 4 years, but we used it for career progression. So I would basically be like, okay, well, I'm going to become an attorney. I'm going to basically then say, okay, I'm going to turn to my boss after 3 years or 4 years of doing the same job. And I'm going to say, okay, I've made you this much money, blah, 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 blah. Make me an equity partner, after doing a really good job, for them, or at least my perception was I did a really good job. And then if you do, you don't, then I'm heading out the door and I'm going to go to a firm that's going to make me an equity partner that day. Okay, hey, bring your book of business, come on over. In reference to the hours, we are completely like, you would basically sit there and you would hear, if I was leaving at 6:30 at night, you would get the passive aggressive quips, joking, not joking, from my boss. Great boss, by the way, but he would say, oh, half day? Oh, I'm glad you can leave at 6:30. He'd been, his firm, he'd been running for 20 years, and that's what time you coming in on Saturday? Okay, I'm just checking. That's what you dealt with. And that's what you just sort of became accustomed to. And then finally we get more to your generation, Gen Z, millennials. And from what I see, there's a lot of dissatisfaction in doing the same job for more than a year or two. And you all tend to hop more.
Why do you think that?
It's how you were raised.
Is it because of our attention spans?
Yep.
You think?
Yeah, I'm amazed you can actually sit in this and listen to me for this long. You're already like, you're like
more relaxed.
Ironically, who's of the two of us, who's more likely to pick up his phone during this thing and look at this phone?
You. You look at your phone a lot.
Oh yeah, it's an addiction. I often call myself a millennial in that regard. But I think that because you all were raised, it has nothing to do with your fault, but your generation was just raised with instant gratification. You go out to dinner, your parents, whatnot. I was raised with act up at dinner while we're out at dinner. Oh, feel the back of my hand. Wham! I'm amazed I have as many teeth as I still do.
If that happened now,
people call the ACLU or whatever organization, not the ACLU, but whatever, they're going to call people Child Protective Services. They can be like, oh my God, there was a person beating their child, in public. Your generation would be like, oh my God, they were beating a child. My generation is like, what did that child do?
Exactly.
Probably deserved it. But not advocating for child abuse or anything like that. But
Disclaimer,
of course. But but you guys would be handed like a phone. And again, just think about this. This has got to be, if you think about this, the iPhone, and its current rendition. See, I figured out a way to actually pick it up and look at it. But if you think about this, it's got to be like one of the greatest inventions of all time. You have like the world of everything ever that's ever been invented is sitting in my hands right now. And when we wanted that when I was a kid, I had to go to the library and something called the World Book Encyclopedia and look it up. You guys instantly are like, hey, look, great. And like, okay, I'm bored. I want to say something else. Okay, hey, great. And see how I did that again?
Yeah, exactly.
So bringing that into the workplace, you're just like, well, I don't enjoy my job now. Well, I don't want to drop any F-bombs on this, but normally I would, or on the office I would, but that's why they call it work. It's not going to be like, oh my God, this is the most freaking amazing thing I've ever done in my life, blah, blah, blah.
You'll have your ups and your down days, yeah.
And it's amazing to me to see like my fiance that is, has worked for the exact same practice group for 20 something years. I know so many lawyers that work for 20 something years and all that. And, and is their job satisfaction? Sure, because you're just happy. You're closer to the generation that was happy with a pen after 40 years than when we switch to millennials and Gen Zs. I think it's because of these damn phones. You all tend to just hop more, but not because you're climbing a ladder. You're hopping more just because you're bored. And I'm just like, well, work doesn't promise you, it promises you a paycheck. And you guys want more something like more like out of it or something like that. And so wrapping all this back in, because I've been talking now for, like 30 minutes now straight on this topic. I think this is the big one. Wrapping this all in, as a manager of a company, like, and especially if you're a Gen Xer or something, or greatest generation if you're still around, or baby boomer or something, and you have millennials, you have to understand it's not necessarily just you or your workplace. It's more difficult to keep them engaged, it's almost like you have to make work sometimes just like, the fun house. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's the same thing. Is just you got to kind of approach, the way you would handle work like you would like just leisurely laying on the couch sometimes. It's just you got to kind of combine them both to, I mean, especially I work from home, so I have a great deal of being able to manage my work from home status. Like, obviously there's, I could wash some dishes while I work, but no, I want to give all my attention to what I'm doing at work. So, I mean, I just guess it all depends. But Matt, I did want to ask you a question. If you had the power to take out phones completely, like phones will never exist ever again, would you do it? No. Why do you think?
They're too valuable resources. I think they're fantastic. I do think that, I'm sorry, I was turning off an alarm or two because it was going to go off like literally in about a minute. I would say that I think that we're still getting used to phones in the workplace and life and all that, and these amazing pieces of technology. But I think, as with anything, we're still in the first sort of real decade of these things exploding. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're due for the rubber band to snap back, and there needs to be better phone etiquette rules. Like, so for instance, and you know this, if you were going through training with me, we actually had this happen in the company. And there was a dude that was sitting there just staring at his phone, obviously looking at YouTube, TikTok, whatever the heck he was looking at, but he was not looking at training. And we had a manager pull him aside and was just like, I'm sorry, am I boring you? Can you basically, and actually the manager was not pejorative, he wasn't sarcastic at all. He's like, excuse me, I need you to put your phone down or whatnot, blah, blah, blah. This is training. And the guy literally was like, I don't need this. See ya, I'm out. And he walked out. But I mean, I think
I remember that.
You remember that. We learn the rules of etiquette. And like, so for instance, I do this to my parents all the time, and my father's gotten on me for it. Like, if you're talking to someone and you're excellent about it, I'm ironically the horrible one about it. There's this, I'm running 27 things and you just don't understand how busy I am. The simple answer is we do need rules of etiquette, that need to be followed. I think there need to be laws passed that you absolutely cannot look at your phone. I know they have them, but I mean, you want to tell me they don't have the technology that if you're going 60 miles an hour, your phone is basically is rendered moot. Like, they can actually now do that with GPS, and it can just kill everything with the exception of emergency call or something.
Well, I know insurance companies do that where they have it on the dashboard, and so if you go past a certain miles per hour, your insurance.
Yeah, state legislatures could actually pass that, and they can mandate.
Yeah.
And they should.
I don't never get it passed on. I don't think, because
probably not. The state legislatures in general just. But anyway,
exactly.
But back to the whole thing. So we see that, you all tend to, I think, hop, but not necessarily for progression, just because you're sort of bored. And I think that is a big challenge for anyone managing a company. And I don't have the answer for it. I think it's just that you have to recognize that. Like, so again, someone who's a little bit older, they are happy and will stay with you for 10 years doing the exact same thing. And then eventually move on for, whatever reasons. Maybe they do get a bigger paycheck somewhere or something. Your generation tended to hop a little bit more, and you tend I review hundreds of resumes, maybe thousands of resumes a year. And the proliferation of young people who think that it's a great thing by the time they're 28 to have 17 jobs on their thing. No, you're a job hopper. And that's, I'm looking for someone who's only had, like, if you're 27, I want you only to have 1 or 2 entries on your resume. That indicates I want to get you for 3 or 4 years at a minimum. If I'm getting you for like 6 months to a year, and then you're like, I'm bored, I need to leave, you're not getting a job with me. I mean, that's just, it's such. So first things first. So the first topic was technology. The second one was what's the difference in generation and such. I think that's sort of just know that you hire someone older, they're likely to probably stay with you longer, and you're likely to be able to say, make sure you have job satisfaction to do your job. When you hire, the younger you get, from what I'm seeing, is you've got to make the workplace more fun and games, and they're more likely to leave you relatively quickly just because they get a little bit bored with it, because they're just looking for that instant great satisfaction and they don't realize it's just work.
But then again, if you hire somebody that's older, and especially if you're in a department where you rely heavily on sending emails, calling people, using your technology to work, do you find it harder to hire older people than younger people in that case?
The challenge with hiring older people, though, is if you hire someone that's in their 50s like me right now, is you may have had a company that this is the way we do it, and they come in from a company the way
way they did something for 20 years. And, it's the old adage, and it's true, old dog, new tricks. They're very reluctant to learn. And now you can't obviously discriminate. We're not advocating for that here, but that is one of the challenges. So, one of the great things about hiring millennials and Gen Zs, and this is true, is a lot of times you have just this lump of clay that you can mold into what you want to mold it. And honestly, here at our company, that's one of the things that, we've really capitalized on over the years, is they don't come in with preconceived notions of what things are supposed to be. So no matter what you throw at them, so long as you say it's, oh, this is normal, this is what we do in the workplace and all that sort of stuff, they're sort of pie-eyed and they're like, okay, cool. And again, if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, they'll be looking for something in a year or two, or less. Oftentimes, a lot of times they'll come in and be like, okay, we're out, whatever.
Exactly.
So I think that's one thing. Talk about workplace hours, though. Talk about the 9 to 5 thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got some on those, but we're running long here, so we got 25 minutes already.
We got 5 minutes left.
We got 5 minutes left. All right. So, your thoughts? 9 to 5. You said you work a little bit over.
Yeah, I don't. I'm a strong believer in a couple of things. That as long as you get the job done, then that's all that matters. Say for example, if I made $0 and my goal was to hit $1,500, I'm going to stay until I make at least half that or hit the goal that I need to set out to be. And if at 5 o'clock I hit my actual goal, depending on where I'm at for the month, I might just call it quits at 5 and just move on with my life. But it just all depends on your case scenario. I am, though, a strong believer, and if you get your job done, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't always, but now I've dramatically come over to that side, because I think that, and that I'm all about effort, and again, unless there's a podcast, I'm going to mention him, but Nick Saban, it's about the effort. It's about the effort that you put into it. But so for instance, we had a salesperson at the company this morning that, roll in, in essence, probably what I'd consider 2 days of sales in one sale at 9 a.m. And are you really going to beat him up for not, working the phones the whole day? And the answer would be, no, that'd be horrible.
As long as you get your job done.
You got it done. Because that's the point of the effort is to get the job done. So to your point, that's absolutely true. But I think the other subtle thing that you said in that is, but I'm willing to continue to work hard past the hours of 9 to 5 and start to get to some semblance of getting done if I didn't get it done during the day. I think it's sales, by the way, we do sales here a lot. It's very difficult because you do not control everything, and so that can be a very frustrating part of sales, which is, you can make 400 calls in a day and then you get zeroed out. You make 2 calls the next day and bada bing, you make an entire month worth of sales. But within that context, I've always been that big advocate because we were raised, and you heard it earlier, the more hours equals the more success. And I will always believe that hard work works. It pains me. And it's not so much to the people that gets the job done from 9 to 5 and then walk out the door. God bless, see you tomorrow. Nice job. Boom, thumbs up. But the people who don't get the job done, that have a malaise at work, and you can watch them. You can literally watch them checking out at work. No matter what we do, no matter how often we have to juggle for, let's have a fun party here. We're going to go out to a bar here. We're going to do the trolley pub here and all that sort of stuff. And you're sitting there juggling. At some juncture, there has to be a give and take. And it's just like, dude, we're doing all these things, but you're supposed to be giving us back something. If you're going to be sitting there reading the dang sports page for the last 2 hours of, the day, not making, sales calls, and then, come to me 6 months later and go, I'm just not satisfied. I'm not getting a huge bonus and all that sort of stuff. Well, whereas if you take that same person, well, maybe they knew the hours of 2 to 4 stink, but I know the hours of 4 to 7, I can coach other salespeople stuff. Oh, sorry, bad word. But, you just get it done. My life is about, getting the work done. But again, I have to remember, and people have taught me this, I own the business. So I love this place in and of itself. I just want it to just do so well in this, for growing it and all that sort of stuff. It's been a blast. But, one of the things that you just have to understand is just not everyone has that same mentality. But again, the mentality is I give you a number to hit every month. And my bosses always gave me a number to hit. I had a secret about law firms, right? You have a billable hour requirement. Okay. That's why when you go to a lawyer, you pay so much money, because you're
going into a system where they're telling their associates they need to bill between 160 and 187 to 200 hours a month. Okay, so that associate has to go and find one of the clients to say, okay, Jacob's got a whatever, thing going on, a legal thing, and I'm going to bill him so many, hours and all that sort of stuff, and they just will work to make sure they get billed. But you got to hit your numbers as those law firm associates. Doctors actually have similar quotas and all that sort of stuff. Well, when you're in a sales organization, you're someone who's just like, you're not worried about your dang quota, and then you're not willing to actually work from 5 to 7. And when you see that, you just know they're not going to work out. But I'm going to tell you this a little bit stronger. Those people actually rarely work out in life. And they're the ones that then you get a resume and they're 32 years old. They've had 6 jobs or 7 jobs on it. And they move around every year or two, and you just look at them. And that's why you don't hire job hoppers, because they're seeking something. They're not being great at anything they do. And they're then, like, you can already see it in their resume. They're searching for something and they think it's out there. And the answer is it's not out there. It's in here. You got to change, because it's not, employers. So I'll leave you with this one, Melissa.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I also do think that it also depends on, what you actually have going on after 5. Maybe some people don't have the pleasure of being able to work longer than. Maybe they have to go pick their children up from school. Maybe they have to go, go to their kids' soccer practice or something right after 5. But I am also a huge believer in it's how you manage and arrange your day as well to kind of counter-react that, I think, as well too.
It is.
So everyone has their excuses, but just like a-holes. But
but I mean, they can be legitimate. But like, so if I'm not getting my job, like I understand. Like, so we'll merge onto one other thing. Is at the end of the day, it's getting their job done, right? And it's fascinating to me, because a while back, I had some regulatory people asking me a bunch of questions about, how could you do this much work and all that sort of stuff. And what you really want to say to them, but you don't, because they're just going to twist the screw even harder, is, well, because I work 18 hours a day. And the person that works in a regulatory government job oftentimes is not going to basically they put their 9 to 5 ticket and all this stuff. Well, that's impossible. If you did the math, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, well, yeah, but whatever. Well, how about when you're on vacation? You've heard the stories about when I'd be on vacation with my family. I'd be get up at, whatever, 6 a.m., go to the gym with the wife at the time, doing whatever around midday, kids are at the pool, everyone goes back to chill out. Well, I don't chill out. I go to the lounge or whatever, whip out my computer, do about 2 or 3 hours of work, then go back, happy hour, dinner, blah, 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 get everyone to bed around 11 o'clock at night, and I go down to that same pub and do about 5 or 6 hours of work. I've done an entire days of work and I get 3 hours of sleep. People always say, wow, you get home from vacation. I'm like, I'm more tired, because like, you're pleasing your family and all that sort of stuff. And I know you want to touch on that as well, but it's like, it's just, the answer is do you choose to be successful in life? And if so, even to your point, like, well, I have to go to the kids' soccer game, whatever, that's right. So after the soccer game at 8 p.m., what are you doing? Did you hit your numbers or did you not hit your numbers? My generation was, you hit your numbers and you didn't cry about anything. You just did it. You either did it or you didn't do it. You succeed or you don't. In a business, I don't have the ability to turn to you and say, hey, I'm sorry I couldn't make your paycheck this week. It's such. So why should you accept from your employee? Well, I had to go to my own soccer game. By the way, in your generation, it's funny. My former wife actually said this once. I thought this was actually hysterical. She's like, I don't really understand how to it's very challenging to manage that next generation, because, and I won't say what court it was, and now I think, yeah, she was working for court at the time. And literally there was just like, the judge was just like, okay, well, I need that brief on my desk by the morning. And the dude's like, I'm out, I got a soccer game to go to. He's like, oh, is it your kid's soccer game? He's like, no, it's mine. Bye. He's like, boom, see you later. And the judge and my former was just sort of like, what? Like they just like, they leave to like do their own soccer games, not even their kids' soccer games.
Soccer game.
More important than whatever. And like, so I don't think that clerk ended up getting a recommendation for the judge to, so that person's doing well. But it's a generational difference, and I think that's one of the things. So I think you can cut through a lot of it with just simply being very clear and be like, listen, I want you to have a great life. I want you to do everything you can do, but here's the numbers I need you to hit. If you don't hit them, you're not doing your job. And then you'll weed out the people who want to then say, okay, well, I'm just not satisfied, I'm going to bounce over here. But you also have to create a mechanism in your organization for people to be extraordinarily successful, and so that you can point to people. And I do that repeatedly around this place, which is just like, I'm just like, so you don't think you can be successful here? And when I'm talking to a low performer or whatever, and I'll point out to like, well, what about that person and that person, that, and you point out all the things, and then let me tell you what they have in common. Doesn't matter if they're Gen Z, Gen X, we don't have greatest generation, we don't have boomers, or Gen Y, okay? It took one thing. They rolled up their sleeves and they just freaking got the job done. And they basically looked at a target on the wall and they said, I'm going to hit that number. It doesn't matter what, how much time it takes. I'm going to hit that number. And we know that there are people in there that do that. And I think that's ultimately what you have to look for. Whether or not it's Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, you can find those diamonds. Doesn't matter where. But then just know that you have those different personalities you have to deal with, on a day-to-day basis.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I agree with everything you just said, Matt. And one last little rapid fire question. Social media or no social media? Do you, just like that question I asked you before with your phone, if you had the power to X out phones forever, would you do the same thing with social media? Do you think it's that important?
I think social media needs to be looked at like TV or anything else.
Entertainment.
It's entertainment, and if you want to spend an hour a day on entertainment, I think the most dangerous thing about social media is when Facebook first came out, you would blank and it'd be 2 hours later. It's like, oh my God, I was catching up with my friends. Now there's so many ads and whatever the heck they're gonna put on my thing now. But there's so many things out there. But you can just whatever these reels, they know it. They are addicting. And you can actually just, next thing you know, you look up, it's been an hour.
It's funny though, most of it's comedy, I've noticed.
Oh, yeah.
That's the most addicting reel that you can possibly, watch is comedy.
I know, that's why I don't
quick,
do
fast videos, yeah.
Yeah, I don't do reels because I'm not funny. I mean, I can remember my mom telling me, son, there are things that are not funny in this world. I was like, Mom, that's her.
I think you're pretty funny, man.
Too, and she'll only tell me, she's like, well, you're in my top 2 favorite children, right behind the first. And I'm like, wow, come on.
Well, you have brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Learn new things every day.
Yeah, there you go. He's
Awesome.
a big, powerful attorney in Washington, D.C.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, alrighty. Well, we know Matt's answer, social media, entertainment only purposes that you should use it for. Other than that, because it is addicting, definitely don't watch it while you're driving in the car because that's also dangerous as well, right? I believe, if you're asking for my opinion, I think I'm on the same page as Matt, is that social media can be very addicting. It can mess with your attention spans. Going to a previous conversation you had before, that's the reason why people that are the younger age have a tendency to leave jobs early is because their attention span is too small.
And one more thing, and I apologize. This is actually a great segue back. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'll throw it back to you. But like one of the things I heard, because even I look at it on social media as well. You see all these guys driving up in these Lamborghinis. Hey, you want to make $5,000 today because I learned how to do it and all that sort of stuff.
Hey, what is with that? Has anybody ever contacted them and actually got successful off of that?
I've heard lots of them are actually broke and they've gone out and they've like leveraged everything they could, borrowed money from mom and dad to rent a Lamborghini, and they're driving up to a rented house and all that sort of stuff. And so they're
all for show then, yeah.
Correct. And it's just a bunch of BS because the first thing I would say is, and this is with any quote unquote get rich scheme thing is, and it's going to roll back to your generation and then to mine as well, is if I was one of these real estate guys, my system, zero money down, can make you $1 gajillion, right? Let me tell you a little secret about the wealthy, okay? If they know how to make $1 gajillion, do you think they're going to share it with you? Why? Because then you would know how to make money off that system. And the more people know how to make it, the system starts failing for them. So I'm not going to tell you how I make my money, okay? That's just silly. So if these guys are trying to tell you how they're making $1 gajillion, let me explain to you. They're not actually making $1 gajillion doing what they're trying to pitch. Their job is to basically pitch you on something, their system. But they're not actually making money using their system, because otherwise, why would they tell you about it? Okay?
Exactly.
So within that context, though, let's take that back to our discussion today. And I think that the generations today are constantly obsessed with instant gratification. Again, it goes back to your, how you guys had phones and could, I want anything in the world. Like, well, I had to wait for it. I had to go to the library and research it. You guys get it in 10 seconds or less. It's right there on your phone. And then so understanding that, I think that's a harder challenge as well, because knowing that also, it's like, well, wow, that guy's got a Lambo and he's got, he's making $5,000 a day.
To show it off, yeah.
Right. You look at your paycheck and you're like, well, I ain't making $5,000 a day.
That makes me angry. I want to contact.
Right.
I want a Lambo. I want a Lambo too.
Right.
Yeah.
can talk about this in private. But anyways, but you know, but then you're just like, so you look at your employer like, well, you're paying me chump change now, buddy. I'm like, well, then go out and find that job that's paying you $5,000 a day. So that's
really
search.
Wow, enlightening. Wow.
As opposed to you basically saying to somebody that like for instance, someone like me, I can't tell you how many times I have somebody come and say, well, I'm not making enough money. I say, okay, how much do you need to make? So first question I would say, what do you want to make? And they're like, I want to make X. I'm like, okay, here's the plan to make X. I cannot tell you how many times people will say to me, yeah, but I don't really want to do all that to get to X. I'm like, well, this is your path to X. This is how you have to do it. I've given you a plan. And then, and so translation, I don't want to do the work. I just want the Lambo. And so the answer would be just trust someone who's been there before. We can set you on a path to, success. But the challenge is, I think, for your generation is trying to separate out the BS from the reality. And the reality is, and I'll still always come back to this because, my heroes are like Kobe Bryant, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Sylvester Stallone, Schwarzenegger, all these people that have done really well. And it's just like, and what they will universally tell you, and I probably should throw Mark Wahlberg in there. I haven't seen him do a lot of success speeches and all that sort of stuff. Even Will Smith back in the day before Slapgate, and stuff. But hard work works. And like, if you don't want to just sit there and bounce around and, think why you're all completely like just not finding, whatever, the satisfaction in a job. The satisfaction in the job is the paycheck and having that paycheck continues to go up. Now, if you're not getting your paycheck go up and someone's promising you it, that's a completely legitimate gripe. But if you're basically like, if you're not mastering the skills to basically become the best salesperson in your organization, the best doctor in your organization, the best lawyer in your organization, best carpenter, whatever the case may be, and you're wondering why your stuff isn't going up, did you see that dude driving a Lambo? Your problem isn't, again, the dude on the Lambo, it's you. And so that's what you got to be, is just be that best version of yourself so you can actually be that person that ultimately, I'm not saying get a Lambo, because I think, I don't want to say about Lambos, I don't get sued here. But, it's just you really got to start dedicating yourselves. And your generation, I think, has just been hornswoggled by those phones telling you, and I think it's hurting your generation a lot. But in any event.
Well, it's bad because you grew up without that and we grew up with that, so we don't know anything different. So I definitely do agree with that. And I think that it is, to your point, is I think fortunately enough, because I was born in 1997, I grew up just right before cell phones started getting addicting. Because I didn't get a cell phone until I was like 13 or 14 years old. Most kids are getting my niece just got one. She's like 8 or 9 years old, and can have the whole power to the world in her palm as well. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
1997.
Yeah, 1997.
That was my first year of practice as an attorney.
Oh, there you go. Awesome.
I'm gonna go over in the corner and weep. Do you want to close it out?
All right, all right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me and Matt today again on Small Business Chat. Where we talk a lot of influential things, a lot of business topics. Today was again Gen Z versus Gen X. I hope you liked it, and stay tuned for the next one. Thank you, and have a great day.